Welcome in, everyone, to a special Thanksgiving fantasy football preview. Let's go. First game, we have the Packers versus the Lions. I'm kind of excited for this one, despite all the injuries on the Packers side. I do think the Lions are going to win, but it could still be a fantasy relevant game with a lot of great options. So let's hop straight into it. First things first, for the Packers, we have Jordan Love, quarterback 17. He's just down so many weapons. I can't trust him this week. I would try to look for a better option in your fantasy lineup. Now, the main intrigue, I would say, on the Packers side is the running back position. Aaron Jones is out. Emmanuel Wilson is also on IR. They added Patrick Taylor and James Robinson as backups to A.J. Dillon, who now has a groin injury. How wonderful. So we can't trust A.J. Dillon with that groin injury. I still have him RB31. Detroit's hard to run against. I guess the volume will probably be there, but I really would look another way. He's probably going to be ranked too high for me in most people's rankings. Backer I'm the most excited about this week, Jayden Reed. I discussed him on the 5 takeaways video. He's probably the top option in the receiving offense. No Luke Musgrave and no Aaron Jones means he'll see short area targets and maybe some carries like he did last week. He's my favorite Packers wide receiver, and I'm totally fine playing him as a wide receiver 3. Now, Romeo Doubs, I'm less fine with playing. He's impossible to trust. He's not even averaging 4 catches or 40 yards a game. He has 7 touchdowns this year. That's not sustainable. So wide receiver 46 for me. I would rather pass on Romeo Doubs. Now, Christian Watson, even worse. I have him wide receiver 52. He's been completely ineffective with Jordan Love. Totally ineffective. 2.3 catches and 36.7 yards a game. He's regressed from his rookie year. He only has 2 touchdowns. Somehow he's catching a miserable 43.2% of his passes. I don't know whose fault that is, if it's his fault or Jordan Love's fault, but you can't play Christian Watson. Like I said, I have him outside my top 50. And then lastly, with Luke Musgrave on IR and Josiah DeGuara out as well, Tucker Kraft hits my rankings at tight end 22. He'll get a shot. Maybe you can play him in a DFS lineup in some way. In Dynasty, he should be added. He should be added from waivers. But in redraft, you probably have better options. I have just no idea what kind of work Tucker Kraft is going to get, so I'm not looking to start him. Now, moving into the Lions, starting with Jared Goff. I have him quarterback 10. He's a fine quarterback play. Last week, I know there were struggles, but Packers are not a scary matchup. I'm playing him as a low-end quarterback 1 like usual. Next, Jahmyr Gibbs. I have RB6. No concerns playing every week. Consistent receiving game usage. You have to play Jahmyr Gibbs as a mid RB1, especially in PPR leagues. Now, Dave Montgomery. I will say, I have him RB17, but the snap shares are scary. 30 and 48%, 30 and 40%, 38 and 40% of the last 2 games, 12 carries in each game, no more than 2 receptions in any game all year. He has to score. Otherwise, he's probably going to bust. But he scored almost every week. So I have him RB17. It's a little bit below consensus. So I am still playing him, but I do have a little bit of a concern. Amon-Ra St. Brown, wide receiver 3. There's nothing to discuss. He's a superstar. Top 5 wide receiver every single week. Play him with no concerns. Now, Jameson Williams, he scored last week. He finally got up to a 65% snap share. There are worse dart throws, but I still have him wide receiver 61. I'm probably looking another way. And similarly, Josh Reynolds, wide receiver 64. He hasn't had more than 2 catches in the last 4 games. He's completely faded out of a relevant role in the offense. The offense is built around Amon-Ra, the running backs, and Sam LaPorta, who I have at tight end 5. He's only had 5 targets in each of the last 2 games, but he's still out there. He's still involved, and I think he turns it around in this one. I still have him as a top 5 tight end play. If this goes badly, if it's another kind of meh game, I might have to move him down a little bit. But right now, he's still one of the high-end tight end options. There aren't that many that get consistent involvement and play super high snap shares like Sam LaPorta on a good offense as well. Now, that was first game. Second game, Commanders versus Cowboys. Well, I'm not super optimistic about this being a close game. I think the Cowboys are going to crush the Commanders. Commanders couldn't even beat the Giants. I mean, the Giants are a horrible team. I think the Cowboys are going to hand the Commanders their head. But there could be a lot of points. We'll see. Even with the Cowboys' good defense, could have some garbage time and give all the fantasy weapons a chance to succeed. With that said, let's jump into the Commanders side of the ball. Starting with Sam Howell. I have him quarterback 15. I know. He's top 5 in the league in passing yards. I'd really rather find another option. Dallas is one of the worst, if not the worst matchups close between them and Baltimore for quarterbacks in the league. We do not want to play Sam Howell. This could be a total disaster of epic proportions. The floor is minimal. So I would look another way if at all possible. But I'm fine playing Brian Robinson. Seems like Antonio Gibson is going to miss again, which means Brian Robinson is a volume-based play. And oddly, the values come in the passing game. 6 and 7 catches the last 2 weeks. Assuming Gibson sits, like I think he's going to, there's no way to sit Brian Robinson. He is a must play. He should be in your lineup. I have him RB19. Unfortunately, I'm still recommending starting Terry McLaurin, but I'm not really impressed with him. He's nothing special. 5.1 receptions and 58.5 yards a game. He's only had over 6 catches once this year. This matchup against the Cowboys is horrific. I guess because it's Terry McLaurin, some volume is still there. There is some upside. I have him wide receiver 28. There are no teams on bye. Probably have to start him in most situations, but I'm not excited. I'm not scared of Terry McLaurin. Doesn't give me any exciting emotions to see him in my lineup, so I'm just kind of meh on him. Jahan Dotson, if you have a death wish, you can start him. Multiple goose eggs. I mean, we're talking about someone who has no chemistry with Sam Howell. I'm just not interested in starting Jahan Dotson. Curtis Samuel, wide receiver 65, is even worse. Don't bother with Curtis Samuel. He was ejected last week. I think I'll look another way. Logan Thomas, it's kind of always in this range, tight end 13 with no teams on bye. Borderline tight end 1 every week. This isn't my favorite week to use him because of the matchup, but he does have a solid floor. He's had at least 4 receptions and 30 yards in each of the last 5 games. So it's a 7-point PPR floor before getting to any touchdowns or any added production on top of that. So very few tight ends give you that kind of floor. So for that reason, I still have him at tight end 13. So let's, if you're still here, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And of course, sign up for the Patreon. You can see all of these rankings on the Patreon, the links in the top right corner, and also in the show description below. So make sure to sign up for that so you can see all of these ranks, all my other start sit ranks, and all that. Now, let's get into previewing the Cowboys. Dak Prescott, I have him at quarterback 4. It's a high-powered offense. Dak is an every week start. This week is no exception. Playing him as a high-end quarterback starter. Tony Pollard, he finally scored last week, and I was so excited. I have him running back 9. I'm playing him again against the Commanders. I'm not scared of that defense, and should be a positive game script. The only little concern is if the Commanders or the Cowboys jump out to a massive lead and Tony Pollard gets scripted out. Hopefully he scores as a part of that early scoring. Rico Dowdle, the game script might allow for him to get some run, but he has an ankle injury. It's kind of limiting him. So with that concern, I'm not running to put him in my lineup. CeeDee Lamb, I have at wide receiver 2 for the week. He had some sort of ankle injury throughout the week. He's not on the injury report. He has over 1,000 yards this year already. He's an absolute must play every week. It's not a decision to play CeeDee Lamb. Brandin Cooks, I have him wide receiver 45. You can play him if you have to, but he's not really trustworthy. He's only had more than 50 yards in 1 game all year, but he had 173 yards on 9 receptions and a touchdown in that one. He has relegated Michael Gallup to essentially not playing, but it doesn't mean that Cooks himself is going to be particularly productive, so not running to play him. And speaking of Michael Gallup, he's just been totally phased out of the offense. I have him wide receiver 66, even in the good matchup. He's not a play under any circumstances. He's playing less than 50% of snaps recently, and it's definitely a how the mighty have fallen situation from his early career production. Lastly, Jake Ferguson, I have a tight end 8. I know he was vultured by Luke Schoonmaker last week, but otherwise, he's an every down tight end in a strong offense. There aren't that many players like that, so I have him tight end 8. You're playing him in most situations. And I love that now on Thanksgiving, we have 3 games. So we have the Cowboys game, the Lions game, and then we have our extra game, the 49ers versus the Seahawks. I'm glad that Geno Smith is going to play because this will be a competitive game. I was a little worried that it was going to be a blowout. I mean, it could still be. Of the 3, I think this will probably be the most competitive game. And I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to see these offenses go back and forth. But let's start by breaking down the 49ers. Brock Purdy, quarterback 12. He delivered 333 and 3 touchdowns last week. This week, I have him quarterback 12. It's a low-end quarterback 1. There's just a lot of good quarterback plays this week. So I have him there, but very comfortable with him as my starting quarterback. Christian McCaffrey, I have RB1 for the week like I do every week. There's just no comparison. He dominates every touch. He's the focus of the offense. Never gets scripted out. He is pristine, excellent, whatever you want to use to describe Christian McCaffrey. Now, Brandon Aiyuk is next. I have him at our wide receiver 11. He hasn't had more than 5 catches since week 4, so the volume's not there. But he averages 92.3 yards per game on 4.8 receptions per game. We're talking about 19.3 yards a catch, 13.6 yards a target. These are like insane numbers. I mean, unheard of numbers. So he's a low-end wide receiver 1 for me with some volume concerns. He's the one that is involved every week. Brandon Aiyuk doesn't get scripted out like Deebo Samuel and George Kittle sometimes can. So I have him the most reliable in the offense, but I saw some ranks of him at wide receiver 6 or 7. The volume's just not there for that. So that's why I have him down at wide receiver 11. Speaking of some volume concerns, Deebo Samuel, wide receiver 24. I'm a little worried. We're talking about someone who only has 3.4 catches a game and averages about 65 yards a game between rushing and receiving, 3 total touchdowns on the year. He's not a high-end fantasy asset, but he's a good wide receiver too. This, without no teams on bye, more of a low end. I will say, though, this year, previously, Deebo Samuel was like the clear number 2 between Aiyuk, Samuel, and Kittle. Now it's more rotated between Samuel and Kittle. It's closer, with Kittle maybe even having a little bit of an edge. So that's why I have Samuel a little bit lower this week. And speaking of George Kittle, I have him tight end 6, but he's in the high end range. There's really no difference between George Kittle at tight end 6 and honestly, even Travis Kelce at tight end 1 with how he's been playing lately. He's been a little bit cold. So he's in that high end tier, 78 plus yards in 4 straight games. And he's been slightly more involved and more consistent this year than last year. Less duds, 64.8 yards per game, 4.3 receptions, solid mid tight end 1. And like I said, he's the last truly reliable option. He's in the high end tier along with all the other guys. Lastly, let's get into the Seahawks. Starting with Geno Smith. He has that elbow injury. He's going to play through it. I'm pretty sure he's going to play. But he's totally off my board. I don't want to play him. I have him quarterback 23. There's re-injury risk with the elbow. The matchup against San Francisco is not exciting. I'm not playing Geno Smith. Zach Charbonnet with Kenneth Walker out with the oblique injury. I expect Charbonnet to get all the work. He saw 85% of the snaps last week. I have him RB21 as a volume-based play in this tough matchup. I do worry with Geno Smith that the offense is not going to go. So I can't rank Charbonnet, in the high-end group. But at RB21, the volume will be there. I'm interested to see how much he gets used in the passing game. So we'll see. But in most situations, you're starting Zach Charbonnet this week. And I do have him ranked above consensus. Now, the Seattle wide receivers, DK Metcalf. It's a little scary with Geno Smith limited. Drew Lock came in last week and looked absolutely awful. Metcalf has been averaging 71.8 yards a game, 4.4 catches. He's not a wide receiver 1, but I'm fine playing him as a low-end wide receiver 2. I have him wide receiver 20. Similarly, I have Tyler Lockett at wide receiver 29. It's nice to see he's not in the injury report this week with the hamstring. I just have him slightly lower. Again, I'm a little worried about Geno Smith. I think he has a little bit less upside than Metcalf, but he's still number 2 in the target pecking order, and wide receiver 29 seems like a good rank. And lastly, Jaxon Smith-Njigba. I have him wide receiver 47. It just sucks. He's such a talented player. I think if he'd gone to almost any other team, he would be the wide receiver 1 or the wide receiver 2 on the depth chart, but Pete Carroll is stubborn. DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett are still good. JSN hasn't broken 63 yards or 7 targets all year, and this is the wrong week to play him. Hurt quarterback, bad matchup. The other 2 guys are completely healthy. I have him wide receiver 47. I can't imagine that I'm starting JSN in almost any situation. Well, I got through all the Thanksgiving plays. If you liked the video, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. I'll have my regular start sit video out on Friday. We go live every Tuesday, 7:30 p.m. Eastern, with my live show. And yeah, happy Thanksgiving, and I will see you all later.